AI is going to be so important in this, next generation of advertising, because the amount of data created in any given moment is endless. How are we as humans going to kind of take it, interpret it, and build for each of those segments now that we know so much about them? It's going to be the most fun challenge of the next decade.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
I'm happy to be here today with Zack Rosenberg, and we're talking about a bunch of things, but we'll start off by talking about the origin story for CatapultX, since that's what takes most of your day.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Kevin. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm happy to be talking about this. And, if I can't answer this question, what question can I answer, right?
Exactly.
So the founding of CatapultX, started with just a seedling of an idea in 2017, where I was working at a company with all these major media publishers, trying to help them build their audiences on social media. And I just felt that there was such a wide open opportunity to create what is sports talk radio for my dad, sports talk social for the next generation. And so I talked to my cousin who worked in radio and started to talk to his friends about kind of porting that from one channel to another. In about 2018, we actually started to do it. We also kind of acquire the rights to these third tier sports leagues. We were running live sports programming. We were doing live talk shows. We started to generate about 600,000 video views a day across Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. But the monetization was about $11 a day on average. So 600,000 views, $11 a day, something wasn't adding up. And so somewhere about 2019, after we had built the audience, started the machine, we realized, hey, what if we were able to bring the advertisements into the video content? And so we started doing these sponsorships with bars and restaurants, where we would actually broadcast from the bar and include some sponsorship and logo within the video content. And all of a sudden, we went from $11 a day to $1,000 a broadcast. And we started to think, whoa, what just happened here, right? We really stumbled on something. And as we talked to more and more publishers, the story kept being the same. Everybody had the same issue. That was a great solve. And so CatapultX was born out of that need to start to understand how to better monetize video by being a part of it, as opposed to being, in front of it or interrupting the middle of it.
Well, clearly, video is where it's at these days, from a content creation, content consumption, and it sort of fits all advertisers, right? So you've got the branding and awareness advertising, and sometimes you can even get it to work for direct response or include direct response elements to it. So, that makes video special. What other things do you think really make video special that appeal to the advertiser?
How much time do we have? This question could go on for hours, right? I mean, what makes it special is the attention, the amount of time that people are obviously spending with video. I read an article in 2 seconds. I watch a video over 20 minutes. That level of actually in it, leaning forward, right? Or leaning backwards. Either way, I'm in the content in a way that just doesn't happen with the written word. Not that the written word doesn't last with me just as long, but my actual attention to it, right? So for video, it already accounts for about 82% of time spent on the internet. Video is it. And if you're not playing towards video, you're missing the audience entirely. And it's really interesting that you say it's built for every advertiser, because it's not. Video creatives are so expensive. Video CPMs are so expensive. So we're really talking about just the hands of a few. And yes, there is amazing impact for those few. But right now, today, it's not a means for everybody. One of the things that we're proudest of at CatapultX about our on-stream ad formats that actually are incorporated into the video content is that it takes an image, up to 75 characters of copy, and a link. So yes, Pepsi could be an advertiser within the content, but so too can my local barbershop in a way that was never possible for on web video or CTV. So I think that the breadth is now there, that it could be a means for everybody, but certainly the impact, you're right. I mean, from branding all the way through to direct response is there because it's got sight, sound, and motion. I mean, it just the emotion of it, the ability to, we've seen, create about 7 times as much attention as the written word. That's the name of the game.
Yeah, it's interesting. It over the years, every few years, you hear from within the industry that they sort of wanted to create a quantifiable way to measure engagement, because it sort of sounds like engagement is part of that secret sauce that you were talking
Definitely.
about that video has, but they could never come up with a definition other than you knew it when you saw it. Right?
Sure.
And
Well, we
so,
started with viewability, right? And that was supposed to be at least the first entry point in order to understand this. And viewability is important, but if I'm watching a video and there's a banner ad to the side, that is viewable, but I've given it 0 attention. So was that ad impactful? I mean, hard to argue that it was. So yes, I think attention is definitely much more in the right direction. We also are thinking about this idea of resonance. So yes, now it's been, there's a level of attention associated with it, but did I meet the right message at the right moment? Because if the message isn't permeating, that's the next level of it. So I think attention is absolutely the next big leap. We look at it as viewability, click-through rate and time spent as a way to understand attention metrics. Now, clearly there's companies who are putting people in, headsets and eye tracking and all that sort of stuff. And that's certainly a much closer way to understand whether or not they're attentive or not. But just using just off the shelf metrics, we think that's the easiest way to do it.
so clearly we've got viewability, attention, and engagement. But another area that it seems like where video wins is in validity, right? Because a big portion of the industry is concerned about validity of ads,
Right.
whether it's bots or fraud, and it's not always happening on purpose, right? I mean, I think a lot of people like to think, well, they're nefarious, shadowy people always trying to defraud publishers, but there are situations where there can be invalid traffic that just happens, right? And so,
Sure.
but video seems to be more resistant to that, and video ad formats seem to be more resistant to that. And so, have you found from your advertisers that that's another important factor for them?
Oh, I will just start at the beginning, right? Ad fraud is something that they are absolutely right to crack down on. And, there's so many companies out there who are trying to attack it in different ways. Is it their primary concern? It's a non-starter, right? If you don't have a network built on trust, then all the rest of it goes out the door. Is video more immune? I think it is certainly immune in some ways. There's the easy argument that kind of twofold. One, if I'm at a bar and one person, has the TV on, but 10,000 people are watching, right? There's that benefit. The same is if I turn on my TV and then I go to the bathroom, is that ad fraud? There was a person there, but they're no longer seeing my ads. So am I delivering what I promised? There are other ways, not to game the system, but just life happens, right? So, I think that because video has been the realm of a few and a few trusted partners, right? There's a lot of folks who are running video or acquiring video, but really, when you're talking about where video consumption takes place, it's in the hands of some few very trusted partners. And I think that has a lot to do with it. When you're branching out across tens of thousands of websites, hundreds of thousands of websites, the quality controls just aren't the same. And so I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, is the few trusted partners.
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the things that as you have these sort of layered type ad formats, in addition to sort of pre-roll, mid-roll, post-roll, do you find that if you're moving, once you start to move into the pre-roll, this is the more standard video-based advertising, where the production needs or the requirements have sort of gone down. It used to be sort of it was going to cost you $5,000 to produce video advertising, and now
Right.
sort of there are lots of success stories where they were produced with a smartphone, right? Sometimes, with intent, they wanted to make it low production value, make it feel authentic. Do you feel like there's any general guidelines as to sort of when you're going to do it that way, longer ads versus shorter ads that tend to work, or is it really very much usage or message dependent?
I actually think it's mostly channel dependent. If I were to run a minute-long ad on TikTok, probably not going to be all that successful, right? If I'm watching, a big long drama, I'm trying to think of one that isn't currently on like a Netflix or an HBO or something that currently isn't ad supported, that I'm so in it and there's a minute-long ad break, I'm not going anywhere, right? So I think the channel really matters, that lean forward versus lean back experience. And in terms of, the length of the creative, I think that matters less than the not the quality of it, because you were talking about the quality of the actual video production. I'm talking about the quality of the messaging. I'm talking about the quality of the story that you're able to tell. We also make the case that it's about the interruptive nature of it, right? If your promise, if you're Netflix or HBO Max or whatever streaming service you're watching, is that we're not going to insert interruptive ads into your content because you're paying a subscription, now to run interruptive ads is breaking that promise. But when you're actually in the content itself, there is no interruption of the content. And therefore, we're seeing 95, 96% completion rates of our units within the video content, because again, you can't look away, especially if you're watching a sporting event. Your eyes are on the screen. I promise you that, right? Somebody's running down the field, an ad pops up, it's there, it's in your full view, and you're not leaving. Unlike that example I talked about where somebody might decide to go to the bathroom, which certainly could happen during one of these breaks. So I think we have to take a two-pronged approach, right? You have to be able to tell that full story, sight, sound, and message, whether it's 6 seconds or 30 seconds, matters more on the channel. And then the coupling of it within the content itself match to what we call moments that make the most sense.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's from the way you describe it, it sounds like you need the relevance, right, needs to be there, but the creative needs to be really strong, right? So if you don't have both of those happening, it's going to fail, right? So
tale as old as time, right?
Yeah. So right message, right time, right audience. And so as a result, the problem
has always been the scale, though, right? I mean, if you go back to, I always quote David Ogilvy, if you could see the ads, they're not working. And that's why there was soap operas, and that's why there was Joe Camel Theater, and that's why, the message was integrated within the programming itself. The challenge was the scale, right? You're not going to have Walmart producing, 10,000 hours of television at this point. I mean, they do produce, but that's, 1/100,000th of what's potentially out there, right? So if that's the holy grail, how do you get even closer to that? I mean, we started with video ads because, of course, they're more scalable. I can take that same message and I can put it across 52 different programs. I don't have to include any other editorial from the original shows or so forth. I think what we're doing is marrying those two things together, right? The scale of that message, but the relevancy between, what it is you're trying to achieve and the content itself. A perfect example of that is, if Nike is one of our partners and they want to be there every time LeBron James is on screen, we can make that association by recognizing that LeBron James is in the video and associating that message with it.
Cool. Well, you mentioned soap operas, right? And obviously they were named such because it was the soap companies
For
paying the
P&G.
freight, right?
Yeah.
P&G and Unilever primarily. And at that point, right, the methodology was basically, same ad, everyone got the same ad, right? Certainly once you start to move to this digital, just-in-time inventory selection process for ads, you have the ability to sort of start to segment a little bit more based on what you might know about the audience, or just even what you might know about the show or the particular instance of the show. And so I'm sure that agencies and brands who you talk to are saying, okay, well, I know I have 3 or 4 different segments that love my product. Should I talk to them differently, or should I really try to do the same thing that happened in the soap operas, which is create the same ad that resonates with everybody, right? How do I decide whether to create more ads because I know I have these different personas or these different segments?
When there was only 3 networks, it wasn't tough to mass market, right?
Right.
You basically had a 1 in 3 chance of hitting the people that you wanted to hit when all of America was focused on one of 3 places. So yes, the messaging wasn't nearly as important, because just from talking to everybody in America at the same time, you were going to get enough of those people. Now that we've diversified all the times that or all the places that we're spending time, yeah, you have to meet the moment, right? And so CatapultX developed this new data set for video we call moments. And it is those actions, events, people, products, places, feelings within the content, so that we can best match the ad to what's happening. I used the LeBron James example, but that is as much telling about you, the consumer, as any other signals. And so that's why we think, if we're headed towards a cookieless world, when we're headed towards a cookieless world, and that ability to kind of match the persona is still not as important as being able to match what they're viewing. If I'm watching a golf tutorial, it doesn't matter if I'm old or young or male or female or anything in between. I'm interested in golf in that exact moment. And that, we think, is way more powerful than all this other stuff. So yes, I mean, it is going to be more fun for creatives, I think, to have to segment based on these micro targets than come up with one message and try to reach all of America at the same time. It's going to be a fun project, and that's why AI is going to be so important in this, next generation of advertising, because the amount of data created in any given moment is endless. How are we as humans going to kind of take it, interpret it, and build for each of those segments now that we know so much about them? It's going to be the most fun challenge of the next decade.
So it sounds like the way you're describing it, it's essentially a context engine, context targeting engine for video. And people are used to context-based targeting in a textual world, right? Because it's very easy for a person to envision, okay, a computer came and read the text on the page and therefore knows what the page is about. And you're reading about honeymoons, and so seeing honeymoon ads makes sense, right? And once you start to move into the video world, like, people don't necessarily think about the fact that an AI and that technology could understand context in a video scenario as well. So
they didn't think about it because it couldn't happen, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, running Did It like you do, you understand the power of contextual from Google search ads, right?
Sure.
People are searching for honeymoons and you're right there. I mean, it is serendipity, right? That ability in video hasn't existed. What happens today is exactly what you described, where most companies, if they do any work, they will look at the page itself and try to make a determination about what that video is about, if they even have access to it, which is a whole different thing. There are examples across our network where the website produces one video a day and puts it on every single page of their website. What on earth does the content that was written 3 years ago have to do with the video on that page? Literally zero. And when it comes to news in particular, things that are churning out every single day, you could see how that pattern becomes exponentially worse when you're, again, looking at content and not what's in that breaking news video section. So yes, having the actual video data is imperative, especially in places where there are no pages. CTV, right? What are you looking at except for the 2-word description of this particular video in order to make that whole determination about a 30-minute program? So you have to have the actual video data, and that just hasn't existed before we brought it to bear.
Have you guys continued to focus primarily on sports, or is a significant amount of the inventory now news style video as well?
Yeah, great question. So sports is certainly where we got the most traction at the beginning because you need an uninterrupted experience. There's the live element, which couldn't really be done before because the way that most people try to approach video is they have to have it in advance in order to make the placements. That can't happen in live sports. So our ability to have figured that out is what drew sports to us very, very early on. But yes, now we're well beyond that. I would actually say that sports makes up probably less than 15% of our overall pool at this point. I would like it to see it bigger because I think there's still so much untapped in sports. But just like the rest of the news consuming world or the entertainment consuming world, sports is kind of proportionally where it should be amongst the whole mix.
Right. Within news, some advertisers have concerns about context of news, right? Because these days it seems like
I
bad
love this
news
question.
is
I love it.
is bad news is more heavily reported than good news.
Sure.
And so as a result, obviously, whether you think about it as brand safety or whether you just think about it as a sort of context of what the consumer is engaging in at the time, I can think there are different challenges that news presents to the advertiser and therefore the publisher. And so how have you guys managed to sort of solve for that?
As you heard me say, I love this question. We need strong news. We need it. This is so vital to our democracy, our country, who we are as people. Every time we receive an RFP, almost every single time we receive an RFP from an advertiser, it says no news. It's not because they don't want the news audience, because they don't know what the content's about, right? And we did an analysis across our news publishers and found that only in 15% of the videos, there was not suitable content for advertisers. Not sections of the video, because then it comes down even further, but the whole video itself, if we wanted to exclude it, was only 15%. Most of it is check out the local Girl Scouts troop and how much money they raised. Well, what advertiser wouldn't want to be associated with that? Sports, weather, traffic, right? Like this local business just reached this huge milestone. These are things that, of course, advertisers want to be associated with if they knew what it was. And so that's how we're helping solve the problem for news publishers, is being able to provide that context in real time, be able to analyze the video content, pass that back through the DSPs or to the advertisers directly and say, hey, we saw this video content. This is not where you want to be. And for them, that opens up all of these advertisers who have been very squeamish about being associated with one thing or another. There's also kind of the flip side to it. If there is a whole bunch of stories about home burglaries and I'm ADT, that might be exactly where I want to be. Right. So, that's an element where they could bring new advertisers to the table as well by saying, every time we run a story about something that was perceived as negative, home insurance could be a second one. You want that strong association with your brand. So it's, again, not that every advertiser doesn't make sense for bad content. It's just that, again, they don't know which content is not for them. I shouldn't say bad content, but which content is not for them, right? The third is, as I mentioned, they're very reliant on national advertisers, but they run local news. And so the ability to not need a video creative to be associated with the video advertising allows them to open up the pool of advertisers to everybody that they sell to or potentially could sell to. And so they don't have the same brand safety or suitability metrics that P&G or Pepsi is going to have. So that allows them, again, to go out to the community and say, hey, sponsor the local news broadcast in a way that they couldn't before, because they would have had to have created a $10,000 video ad for them to use. So I think that the future for news is bright now that you have a clear understanding of what content is suitable and which one isn't.
That's great. And you mentioned that you make your available because your primary relationships are with the publishers who are looking to monetize their under-monetized video. And you mentioned that, you make that inventory available to DSPs. Yet, unlike many SSPs, you also make the inventory available directly, right? Which I thought was a really interesting choice that you said, okay, we want to
Do you think
open
we
up.
took on too much, Kevin? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I really think it's the part of the challenge is that not all the DSPs are ready to ingest the signals that you're sending to them,
Yes.
right? And so if they're not ready to take the information and use it in a way to benefit their side of the demand chain, right, then you've sort of done a disservice to the publisher, because you've got this strong signal and it's not getting used by the advertiser side of the equation. So I actually thought it was pretty cool when I saw you guys opened up the ability for people to come in and work with you directly. But I'm curious sort of what that catalyst was when you guys said, we got to build the front end for the advertiser, right?
Yeah. So it was not simple, but became simple in that we ran a number of advertisers directly and the performance was unmatched. And it was unmatched because we were able to use the full suite of what we built. We were able to use this idea of moments and contextual relevancy within the content, use our formats at the right times and the right moments. Viant and SeedTag found that our on-stream ads are 6.8 times more attention than traditional video ads. We just ran a study with Lucid that found that we can lift brand awareness by 30%, consideration by 34%, purchase intent by 30%, and ad recall by almost 20%. That resonance score that I was talking about, right? The ability to match the creative with the moment and the content, it has to be utilized correctly in order to see those kinds of lifts that are literally off the charts. So, our story, or our ability to go tell that story to brands and say, what you're getting on the open market, what you're getting through your DSPs is just the formats. And while the formats are impactful, the story is much greater than that. When we walk into a brand and we talk about the future of moments and, the data and the capabilities of it and what we're trying to associate with, people are falling out of their chairs, but they just don't know how to use it yet. And so that's our job to educate them, because no one's ever had to buy that way. No one's ever thought about buying that way. And certainly, as you pointed out, the DSPs aren't set up to do that either. So it was incumbent upon us, if we believe in this the way that we do, to get out there and tell our story directly. And those are the results we've seen.
Well, congrats on that. The moments targeting engine, I recall from a conversation we had at one of the evening events that you typically sponsored, that's heavily AI driven. And so
otherwise we'd have a lot of people sitting somewhere, marking things off.
Right. And with AI, right, AIs sort of need at least a critical mass of data to be able to make the decisions. And in order to have a certain amount of data, they need to have advertisers in market for a certain amount of time. So is the AI essentially learning across advertisers, so that when a new advertiser comes in, the AI sort of already knows about the context of that video and could sort of say, oh, well, it worked for Nike, it probably works for Adidas as well, right? And so it doesn't have to start from scratch.
So the first way I'll answer this is you have to invest. And that's an area that, takes dedication. I mean, it is a cost center until it's not, right? And, anybody who invests in AI will see huge dividends. So this is me encouraging the industry to actually invest in this area, because I believe in it so much. And as you know, I write a newsletter every Sunday called the AI in Advertising newsletter, trying to talk about these concepts, trying to make them simple, trying to, really proliferate it across the industry, because there is such a wealth of data. And as I said, even in my perfect vision, we're only scratching the surface on what's possible. So yes, I mean, I certainly believe in it. This can only be done through AI for those reasons. I mean, we're processing hundreds of thousands of data points per second. How else could that have been done except for the use of AI? So it is vital to everything that we're trying to build, and getting people to understand its power and its capabilities gets them to ask us the right questions. What problem are you trying to solve, right? AI is just a tool for what problem am I trying to solve? But once they know what questions to ask, then the light bulb goes on, right? Oh, if we train this, if we apply this, if we open this up, then we're going to be able to really make an impact for you.
Cool. Well, certainly there are a lot of different opinions as to 2023, which is coming up shortly. We're recording this in in October of 2022. So some folks are worried that there'll be a huge slowdown in spending, that there might be a recession coming. But yet at Advertising Week New York and at other conferences that I've been at, there seems to be a general level of excitement, I think. What has you excited about 2023?
I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan, especially the original series, books as well. But there is a great saying that I repeat all the time from the character Littlefinger, where he says, "Chaos is a ladder." A lot of people, certainly want to lean away from chaos. We were born in it, right? We started the company basically January 2020, about a month before the pandemic hit. We have certainly survived tumult before, and I think we can do it again. But what I think it's going to allow us to do is have a very open path. I'll talk about the industry in a second, but for us, a lot of folks are going to be able or are going to cut R&D. They're going to cut special projects. They're going to focus on what they do best. But what's going to come out of that for the industry is the need to see more than slight gains, 0.5% here, 1% here. And so I think that they are going to take the bigger bets, bigger than they expect in 2023, so that they can, see some more incremental gains at a time when most people are paring back. Those are the people I'm really excited for.
Great. And I would agree with that. And the other thing is the intersection of power and simplicity, I think, is going to be really key for platforms on a go forward basis. Is, if it's powerful but complex to execute on, then it's going to probably get put on the back burner. But if it's powerful and simple and turnkey, that's going to be a survivor. So I actually, refactoring all the code for our Sweeps for a Cause platform, which is our philanthropic sweepstakes, because people came to us and said, too complicated, needs to be turnkey. Right. So we're completely rebuilding it because it wasn't turnkey enough in its version 1.0. And so one of the things I really love about what you've built is you've made it pretty turnkey.
Certainly, we knew that we weren't going to get people to make a 95% shift in their thinking. And I think that's one of the greatest lessons I've learned throughout my career is if you want to sell something that's a 95% change, tell everyone it's a 3% change, right? You only have to do just this different and look what happens. And so that stuck with me. And yes, we built this for the ability to be programmatic and, operate on the same formats and functions that any other advertisement functions in today, because I needed to open that door. I needed people to realize the impact, the 95% impact from just a 3% change.
Absolutely. Well, Zack, thanks for joining me and having a conversation about your platforms and the industry at large. Look forward to seeing what you guys have rolling out soon.
Thanks so much, Kevin. This was fun, and look forward to seeing you soon. Likewise.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.